But the small fish in these little streams in Japan are incredibly difficult to fish for. And people are like army crawling with 15-foot leaders and 7X to catch an 8-inch fish, you know, and you're tying little cripple patterns or whatever to fool them. They're sort of notoriously hard to catch, which creates a really interesting dynamic for people like us who just love small stream fishing like that, to then add, you can have both of those things. You can have like the challenge of a Henry's Fork rainbow.
There were so many times where you're like, there should be a fish here. Why is there not a fish here? Like, it looks perfect. And you're just, it's not the same fishing experience, but it was, I don't know. I can't really like put my finger on what it was about it that like really just swept me off my feet. But the only thing I wasn't stoked on was the brown bear situation.
Hello and welcome to Sidechannels, presented by the Fly Fish Journal. My name is Jason Rolfe. I'm the editor of the Fly Fish Journal as well as the host of Sidechannels, along with our photo editor, Kopi Voita. We'll get to my conversation with Aimee and Chase Bartee of Tight Loops Fly in just a moment, but before we do, I want to tell you about the sponsors that make Sidechannels possible. You know that black hole in the back of your truck where gear goes to disappear forever? Decked has put a stop to that. Fishing rods, organized. Power tools, locked down. Climbing gear, camping gear, sports gear, your kids' weird toy collection, all of it dry, secure, and actually findable. It's like a filing cabinet for your rugged side. I've got the decked drawer system in my truck, and honestly, it's a game changer. I can hit the road, get waded up, and be waist deep in the river before most people finish untangling their leaders. So stop playing hide and seek with your gear. Get decked and get after it. Check out decked.com/flyfish and treat your truck like the gear hauling beast it was born to be. Sidechannels is also supported by Patagonia Fly Fishing. Patagonia's commitment to making solid gear that stands up to all the abuse you can throw at it is matched by their dedication to our home planet. They've had some great things brewing recently, including their new Swift Current Expedition waders. Built on exploration, these waders are purpose-made for connecting with wild fish and inspired by the tireless anglers and groups fighting to protect the clean water those fish depend on. Visit patagonia.com/fly-fishing to learn more about the new Swift Current Expedition Series waders and the community of conservationists and environmental advocates that make Patagonia what it is. So I had the good fortune to catch Chase and Aimee Bartee during a bit of downtime in their travels recently in Bozeman, Montana. If you aren't familiar with Chase and Aimee's work, much of it can be found under the moniker Tight Loops or Tight Loops Fly, depending on where you're looking. Their full-length film Big Land won Best Adventure at the Fly Fishing Film Awards in 2019, and for the past several years they've been working on a series called For Wild's Sake that offers in-depth looks at various wild trout species. On top of their various film projects, Aimee is a fantastic editorial photographer and Chase is a writer and fine artist known for his exquisitely detailed watercolors of various fish species, the kind of detail that to me is just mind-blowing. Chase and Aimee's work has been featured in the Fly Fish Journal as well as other outlets numerous times, and I have to say, as a fan of all of their work, whether it's film or photography or writing or painting, it was just a real pleasure to chat with Chase and Aimee. We actually met up at the Bozeman Public Library of all places, which provided a beautiful space for the conversation. Shout out to our public libraries out there. They're beautiful places. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to drag Kopi along for this one, so it's just me and the Bartees. But either way, I hope you dig it as much as I did. Let's get to the show. You guys just got back. When did you get back from Japan? Today's Wednesday.
About 3 days ago. Yeah, that's been kind of a tough one to keep track of the days.
Sunday or Monday?
Yeah, I mean, we're still definitely a little jet lagged.
You
We were in the future. Yeah, we're in Japan. You're 16 hours ahead.
16. Okay.
So it's pretty shocking to the system for sure. Been having a lot of trouble sleeping. So
I'm sure
if things get weird today.
Yeah.
Blame it on the jet lag.
That's all right. So
I mean, it's weird, but it makes sense. But it's directional. You know, you don't get jet lagged going east, but coming east to west is when you get it really bad.
Yeah, so and like we've just been all over the place. And I feel like the longer you spend in one place, like the more your body is like fully adjusted. So we went from Greenland, which is not a huge difference. It's like 6 hours ahead. Mm-hmm. And then
when were you in Greenland?
For the month of August.
Oh, okay.
And then came back for 24 hours to the States because of a whole situation at the airport. We were supposed to have 3 days while we were in Greenland. The day before we were supposed to fly, United canceled our flights with no explanation. And we were like, oh my God, what do we do? Like, we have to be in Japan on Saturday. Like, this is crazy.
They canceled your Greenland back to
the U.S.
Yeah, so one of the big news for Greenland in the last year is they built a new international airport, and now you can fly direct from the United States
starting in June,
Nuuk, which is a brand new thing. You used to have to route through Europe and go to the small airport, and they just built this
Iceland, Denmark,
brand new state of the art international airport, direct flights, but it's once a week. There's one flight United that goes from New Jersey to Nuuk, and then Nuuk back to New Jersey the next day. So if that plane, for whatever reason, weather, and of course as you would expect in the Arctic, weather's pretty variable. It's not uncommon for a plane to have to turn around because of weather conditions or any number of other reasons. Then everyone for that whole week is just sort of shit out of luck, in terms of getting in and out of Greenland. Our issue was not weather related. It was staffing
something even less
related.
Predictable.
It turns out that
human related.
I mean, with the initial sort of statements from the airport was that there was like an issue with security, and that like security wasn't up to snuff, and they needed to train more people, and they didn't have the right people there, or something, yada yada. It turns out that really what happened is that, I mean, it was security related, but the staff who were, knowledgeable and in the security arena all sort of quit to go caribou hunting because the herd was like running. It was like such a Greenland issue.
Yeah, kind of like the most amazing.
Basically, everyone called out to go hunt caribou.
Yeah, they're like, not a hunting's too good right now. We gotta go.
No one suitable to staff the airport, so they ended up having to fly people in from Denmark. Danish authorities to run the airport,
which required us to do a crazy reroute. Essentially, that flight from United, we never got any word about whether they would bring that flight back sooner or if it was going to be 8 to 10 days before that flight would be available. And that's what it was looking like. So we had to reroute Greenland to Copenhagen, Copenhagen to Reykjavik, Reykjavik to Boston, Boston to Minneapolis, Minneapolis to Bozeman, which was like the craziest 2 days of travel with like no sleep. Yeah. And like the most expensive.
What's crazy though is that the United flight that was supposed to come in that week and then take people back out turned around like midway somewhere off the coast of Labrador and just went back to the States. Like everyone who was on that plane was like fully ready to land, and somehow this kerfuffle with airport security happened like while they were in the air, and they all got turned around. Actually, Todd Moen, who I'm sure you're familiar with, the filmmaker, was on that flight to come to the same place we had just been making a film in Greenland. They'd also invited him that summer, and he got turned around, didn't make it. So shouts out to Todd. Maybe next year, I'm sure they'll have you back.
On the scale of travel fiascos that you guys have dealt with over the years, where did that?
That's number one for me, but I haven't done a ton of international travel. Okay. And the more international travel I do, this year being a big year for me, the more I realize you kind of just have to go with the flow, and this stuff happens all the time. We went to Japan for a month in April earlier this year, and before that I had only flown to Patagonia. That was my only international trip aside from like driving to Canada or Mexico.
Were you hosting a trip down there?
Hosting a trip down in Patagonia, not fishing related, but just a girls group of doing a kind of like a sightseeing touristy tour. So that was my first big international travel excursion. That was back in 2023, 2022. And then Japan in April, Greenland in August, back to Japan at the end of August, Mongolia, and then back to Japan again, and now we're here. So like this year has really been.
So in the last 2 months, you've done Greenland, Japan, Mongolia, Japan, and then back home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so why don't you guys tell me what you're doing in all of these places? Like, is it work? Is it fun? Is it both? What, let's start with Greenland. What brought you guys out there?
The Greenland trip in particular, we'd been contacted by a new business, new sort of outfitter.
Guiding outfit.
Yeah, guiding outfitter in Greenland who have been doing sort of ecotourism stuff for a couple of years, but are just starting a new fly fishing program there. And fly fishing in Greenland in general is really green. Well, I guess pun intended, but it's really, really fresh. Fishing, people have been fishing in Greenland for thousands of years, but mostly subsistence style fishing. Most of the culture and the people who live there are still living similarly to the way they did 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. There's a lot of really sort of basic subsistence style living. So the idea of sport fishing is really new there, and then fly fishing even newer. So there's a lot of sort of exploration frontiers in that regard. Maybe not in terms of, you're going to be the first person who's stepped foot on this river, because people have been there, like I said, for thousands of years fishing, both indigenous people and European colonizers, the Danish, and other folks since then. But you might be the first person who's ever cast a fly there. And there aren't a lot of places in the world where that's still the case, especially places like Greenland that have these like incredible salmonid fishing. Sport fisheries, Arctic char fishing, a little bit of salmon fishing too, but really sort of focus on the world-class Arctic char fishing, where you can go to a place like that and be like, oh, I'm the first person who's ever thrown a streamer in here or whatever, which is pretty cool. So when we were contacted by these folks who had just done some exploration work and found a suitable site that they wanted to start running an outfit out of, and invited us to come check it out. We obviously leapt at the idea. Not only is Greenland sort of a bucket list travel destination for anybody who's interested in the outdoors and majestic landscapes and sort of untouched ecosystems. Greenland as a whole is probably one of the last great fully untouched and whole ecosystems like that whole island.
Is it something that had already been on your radar? Like, was that a place?
For me, it was a little bit less destination just for fishing, but my grandfather went to Greenland in, I think it was in the 60s, maybe the 70s. My
grandpa was in the Navy and spent time in Greenland and Iceland.
I have to ask my grandfather what exactly he was doing. I know it was like a government type job that he had like gotten in on without being a government employee. I don't exactly know what happened, but there was something funky, but he ended up with this opportunity to go there, and I have never forgotten like the way he talked about Greenland when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Just like how incredibly beautiful it was. So it was like something that stuck in my mind. It was always like, oh man, Greenland, like that sounds like such a cool place. Like I want to go there one day. And then I don't know, it seems like how would I go to Greenland? Like what does that look like? And got into the fly fishing world, and you start to look at different opportunities in different places. And then, the opportunity with Raw Arctic came up in Greenland. And it was like, whoa, we're actually doing this. Like this is happening. This is pretty crazy. So it happened pretty quickly. And
do you find yourself surprised when these opportunities, like, is there still a sense of like, holy shit, we get to do this? Or has it
100%
100% still?
It feels insane to like get to go see these places, and like to call it work is like, the experiences never feel like work. Like the people that we met, the people that we meet on all these kind of trips, like it's just, you come away with new friends, you build this like little family, you're out in this remote area at a camp, like you're super isolated, and you really have to work together and get to know each other really quickly. And it just like builds such a unique relationship with the people, and get to learn about their culture and learn about their traditions. And it's just unreal. I don't know. I feel so grateful for those opportunities. And every time we get contacted for opportunities like this, I think Chase and I are both like, is this real? I don't think this can't be real, right? Like this seems too good to be true. And then you're like, oh my gosh, wow. Like this is...
That actually happened with this Greenland opportunity. They contacted us in 2022, actually, when they were doing their exploration, when they were looking for suitable sites to run an operation. out of. They contacted us and being like, hey, you want to come explore Greenland with us?
Yeah, we were like, yeah, that sounds cool.
But we get lots of okay, so I should say, this kind of stuff doesn't feel like work, and oftentimes it doesn't pay like work either. We field lots of inquiries from people who are like, hey, I've got a great idea for you. Why don't you come do this exotic expedition here, make a film or whatever? You're welcome. I've given you this idea or whatever, with like no solution as to how that's going to be funded or logistically how it's going to happen or anything like that. And we get a lot of emails like that. And this email kind of felt like that. It was someone being like, hey, I'm in Greenland and like there's some great fishing opportunities, like want to check it out? And we're like, yeah, cool, like we'd love to. What does that look like? And they're kind of like, I don't know, like maybe you should come or whatever. And like it didn't immediately, there wasn't an immediately apparent plan for like oh, like, hey, we'd like to fund you coming out here, or like, and we just sort of dismissed it, and that email just fell into the bottom of the pile for years until some close friends of ours, Will and Erica Phelps, who also run a fly fishing media company, Phelps on the Fly. They've got a YouTube channel, and Will's been like gigging in the industry, making tons of the films that people see on the tours and stuff like that for years and years. Anyway, we were together down in Baja over the winter. Will and Erica recently spent a year living out of their van. Anyone who lives out of their vehicle, you find yourself sort of crossing paths in the same parts of the world at the same times a year, because we're all seeking kind of the same things. We were all hanging out, and they were like, oh yeah, talking about what we have planned for the summer and upcoming seasons.
These people hit us up to go to Greenland.
Yeah, we're going to Greenland. We're like, oh, that's interesting. We got an email a couple of years ago about Greenland. I'd almost completely forgotten about it. And then the more we talked about it, we're like, hey, I think these might be the same people. We should check back in with them once we realized that it was a real opportunity that was materializing for them in a real way. Yeah. And we reached back out to them, and they were super snappy with their response. Like, yeah, we'd still love for you to come. And they didn't even know that we knew each other. We ended up taking a call with them from Baja on Will and Erica's iPad, because we didn't have service on our devices. They were like right in the background, and we ended up going out there for months together and spending.
Why don't you guys come together? Like, let's just make it like a friends trip. That was really unique and really cool.
Long way of getting to the story of like the sort of like pinch us, we're dreaming. Sometimes like we outright just dismiss things as like, this can't even be real, because it seems so far fetched that. Yes, you'd get a cold email from someone inviting you to have this incredible experience in the Arctic,
What was Greenland like? Like, what was your trip and the fishing? It sounds like you got to kind of interact with Greenlanders, locals a bit. And
we spent a little bit of time in Nuuk. It was really important to Chase and I. We worked together to figure out an itinerary that made sense, and we wanted to spend as much time as possible, which is how we ended up there for almost a month. We got to spend a little bit of time in Nuuk, in the city, put that in air quotes. It's a small town, but it's the capital. It's the biggest.
Yeah.
It's the highest concentration of people in Greenland, and I think it's 59,000 people in Nuuk. Okay. And that's like, more than like half the population.
There was like 59,000 people in all of Greenland, and there's like 19,000 in.
Oh yeah, actually you might be right. Yeah. You're right. It's 59,000 people, and I think it's 16,000 in Nuuk or something.
Oh, okay. Like yeah, so it's tiny,
small. Yeah. But we got to go to some museums. We did a little iceberg tour with Raw Arctic while we were in town, which was so cool to get to see those up close. We got lucky with the timing that the icebergs were still in that area, and I got to experience a little bit of the local culture there. And then most of the rest of our time was spent in the backcountry. It was like a 2-hour boat ride.
3 hours.
3-hour boat ride. Wow. Back deep into a fjord, and a camp set up there for you. And
cool.
Then it was the experience of being at the camp and doing all the fishing things, but then also there's caribou coming right down into camp. They're hunting for caribou. And while you're at the camp, you are living off of things that are harvested. So we're eating Arctic char, we're eating cod, and we're eating caribou. And that's like all your protein sources, which is, I think, a really unique experience for it's not a lodge, but it's got the same model for like an outfitted trip like that. That was really unique and really special. And they're, the folks that are cooking for us are cooking their mom's traditional like Greenlandic stews that they make. Yeah. And it was my birthday while we were there, and they sang happy birthday to me in Greenlandic, which was a really special, really moving thing to get to experience. So it was just learning the language, learning so much more about Greenlandic culture. It was
it's cool.
Like completely immersive, like super unique experience.
Yeah, there's a really intact indigenous culture there still.
Yeah.
You know, like when Aimee says Greenlandic is like an Inuit style indigenous language that's still spoken commonly. It's probably, you know, between Danish, people who don't know, Greenland was colonized by the Danes. It's still technically run by the Danish government. It's owned by Denmark. But between Danish and Greenlandic, those are sort of the two main languages spoken, which is uncommon for us here back in North America, where like little pockets of, you know, indigenous language is still spoken, but by very few people. But there it's still super, super common. Most people are fluent in it. It's taught in schools, which is really, really cool to get to see this sort of old subsistence hunter-gatherer style indigenous culture still like alive and thriving and being practiced by so many people. That was really
hence why, you know, the airport shut down.
Right. Gotta hunt, you gotta hunt.
Yeah.
So
it was cool. It's a cool program. It's similar to what a lot of people who have fished in remote areas, especially in the north, would be familiar with. But, you know, the mode of transportation mostly in, you know, lodges like in Alaska or in Canada would be by bush plane or float plane. In Greenland, whether it's just, you know, the style or culture, or if it has to do with terrain and weather, like the planes and helicopters aren't nearly as common. It seems it's mostly boat travel through the fjords, and then once you get where you're going, it's travel on foot, and it's pretty like serious hiking through the canyons in the fjords. And the canyons and valleys are insane. They're like mini Yosemite's. Like every single fjord is just 2,000-3,000 foot granite cliffs. I mean,
the landscape is just insane.
I don't know what exactly we expected Greenland would look like, but certainly didn't prepare us for like how grand the landscape was there.
Definitely got to be ready to hike a bit though. You know, like the fishing was unbelievable. I think for me personally, probably the best fishing I've ever experienced. But
really,
yeah, it was crazy. But you gotta work for it too. You know, like
just
you gotta hike.
Just in terms of like numbers of fish or size of fish, or just like the sort of overall quality, all of it. It's just like
the places you're fishing, like the landscape you're fishing in is just like, you get to sit on the side of the river and be like endlessly entertained, just like looking around, the color of the water, the clarity of the water, the fish, the size of the fish, the colors of the fish, like even the silver ones that are moving up into the system, the super bright red orange one, like it's just unbelievable. And then you're in this incredible place. Like it's just, I don't know, it checked like every box for me. And it was, and like it wasn't, you could catch a ton of fish. You could catch a lot of fish that by our standard, you know, Chase and I catch a lot of small native fish. We're not like big fish people, but everyone appreciates catching a big fish. And that was certainly a goal when we went to Greenland. You want to catch a big colored up char, but you catch a lot of fish in those rivers, but you're not catching a lot of the really big ones. You're catching a lot of, I mean, to us, like trophy sized fish. But
the,
like
the average
big
fish is probably like 18, 19 inches, and you can like catch those on every cast.
Beautiful fish.
But trying to catch a 2-footer, you know, takes a lot more work, and you got to like, it's hard to get a fly in front of one of those fish because
it was a challenge for sure.
16, 18, 19-inch fish are smashing your fly the second it hits the water. I think there's probably comparable fishing in parts of Alaska and areas like that, but it's like, it's the combination. It's like showing up to some of the like sockeye runs in Bristol Bay, but all those fish would be like big rainbows or something. You know, the Arctic char are like such a great sport fish and so aggressive. They hit a fly so aggressively, they fight insane. So it's, you're seeing fish in thick numbers like that, huge schools of fish where it's like, you know, cliche, you could walk across their backs or something. But you encounter stuff like that in Alaska, but it's kind of hard to get those fish to eat. You know, it's not hard to get the char, just will eat anything, you know? Really? So it's like, it gets like, it like gets tiring. You know, and you're like, I just got to take a break. My arm's tired. I'm bored of catching fish. Like, let's go do something else.
But if you want to catch like a 55 centimeter plus fish, like you do have to work for it. It's not going to just be like like it took us. I mean, I caught one that I felt like fulfilled that like big colored up char. And I think it was like 55, 56.
We went into centimeter mode because we were in a European nation.
Creeping up on 2 feet.
Between like Greenland and Mongolia and Japan, like I think we're like fully on the metric system.
Well, it's funny. I'm wondering if like, so I was kind of looking back through, Tight Loop's YouTube and kind of looking back at some of those earlier films. And I remember I have sort of vivid memories of kind of discovering you guys' films and just being really moved by them and affected by them and thinking, it was the kind of thing that I wanted to see, that I wanted to watch. And I was excited to see that it was there. But, I'm thinking of those, I think the very first one on there, or one of the first ones on there is like A Love Letter to Fall or something like that. And it's, little brook trout, maybe a slightly bigger brown. And I guess I'm wondering for you guys, the experience of not only fishing, but creating a story out of the fishing. How do you feel like that has evolved from like those early forays into, those projects that you were doing to going to a place like Greenland? Like, how has your sort of creative outlook, I guess, evolved or changed, or has it?
I mean, I think it has and it hasn't. I think it's evolved in the same way that we've evolved as people and as anglers. I think, the goal or challenge for any artist in any medium is to try and translate the way that they see the world for other people, right? An artist's viewpoint is generally unique from the general population. And so you're trying to transmit your experience, how you interpret things, how things make you feel, et cetera, into whatever your medium is. And what fishing has meant to us has changed over time. So in that sense, the approach has changed a little bit. I think anyone who watches our stuff, maybe to a lot of people's chagrin, will know that like over time it becomes like less fishing focused and more sort of like fishing adjacent. And I mean, I think that was probably always true in our early work also. They're fishing films, but we tried to give, because our experience of fishing even then was a much more sort of like holistic view, or fishing as a small piece of this sort of larger puzzle that allows us to connect with environments and natural systems and food webs and that whole experience sort of as naturalists first, fly anglers second. I think our transition grows more and more towards sort of generalized naturalists as time goes on, and away from just sort of like diehard anglers. And our biggest goal in our work is to try and show people who might have a hyper focus on just the fishing aspect how much more there is out there and how much they might be missing by having that sort of laser focus, because our lives and our experience is so enriched by having this sort of larger scope, than just, I want to go here and I want to catch this fish. But of course we're still fishy people. Like we still have that piece of us there.
It's always been very important to us, and like the opposite of what you're saying, Chase. So like these stories appeal to more than just a fisherman.
Yeah.
It's a bigger story that can reach a wider audience, where someone who maybe has never thought about rivers or fish or the way things are connected in that way can start to think about those things and maybe, turn them on to something new, or give them a new perspective or motivation to protect those areas. And
right. And I think our work has become much more sort of pointed over the years towards ideas about conservation and ecology and naturalism, whereas and that's sort of in line with our evolution as people and as anglers and as naturalists, to sort of have the language to articulate a lot of that stuff. You look at an early film like that sort of Love Letter to Fall, we're basically just sort of giving like a visual representation of all these things that move us, about, and we maybe didn't have the language to say, this is why it moves us, and this is why we feel that's important, and here's the next step once you've identified this is important. What can you do to help protect this and conserve this and ensure that other people can experience it, et cetera, et cetera. We're sort of saying that without knowing how to say that, just by going, God, look how cool all this stuff is.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel that? We feel that.
Yeah,
like, do you feel it when you watch this? Because I feel it when I'm shooting it, you know? And that's sort of just like a tone poem vibe piece like that. And sort of, you watch our films over the years, they slowly are progressing to being much more sort of heady and verbose and lengthy, and maybe to some people tiring sort of.
And less fishy, maybe.
Yes, soapbox rantings about, you know, conservation. And the most important piece, so, you know, because like I said, we're sort of naturalist types, we're really interested in this stuff sort of conceptually and ideologically. You know, in my spare time, I'm reading scientific papers about all manner of things, lots of stuff about fish and stuff about birds and reptiles. And, you know, this is just kind of our interests are focused there to begin with. And we sort of realized over time that one of our greatest skill sets, because we've developed this vocabulary for storytelling, is to be able to communicate a lot of that stuff. I think the biggest disconnect between the science community and the general public is how science is communicated. You know, science has a real problem there. The people who make great scientists are not the same type of people who make great storytellers, you know, and you don't want that anyway. You want that type A, you know, personality, or the person who's going to shut themselves in a laboratory and never, you know, not see the light of day for a month and crunch the numbers and do all that kind of nitty gritty work to have good science operating. But then you need the spokespeople who maybe don't have the minds for that type of work, but do really understand how to boil that stuff down and transmit it to the general public in a meaningful way that translates to something that people can understand and feel something about, and help move the needle that way. And there was a long time over the last 10 years where I thought, gosh, man, I just love biology and fish and wildlife so much. Like, did I miss my calling? Should I go back to school and get a biology degree or something? You know, like I'm almost happier when we get to tag along on field study work with fisheries biologists or something than I am doing anything else. And I realized, like, no, you know, like we have a gift here, and the gift is as communicators, and we can kind of fit this role of being science communicators, even if secretly we wish we were scientists. At the end of the day, that's not our strong suit. You know, our strong suit is in being able to help take the things that scientists are discovering and trying to communicate dryly most of the time, and try and transmit that into a more emotionally palatable message for people. So yeah, a really long way of answering your question. There's a whole manner of techniques that are implemented to tell a good moving story, you know, and that's the challenge. There's so much information, and there's so much to boil down into one of these stories. And a lot of our work, you know, like we've got a series we've been rolling out for years called For Wild's Sake, that is sort of these like really, really deep dive sort of first macro looks at something like a native fish species, and then zooms out huge into like how that fits into the larger ecological puzzle, the larger social puzzle, historical, you know, all this kind of stuff. I think it sort of probably watches kind of like a run-on sentence at times, because we're trying to cram so much information. And that comes also from, like you said, being sort of an observant person. If you are curious and you are observant, you find yourself going down all these different webs and rabbit holes once you get interested in a subject. And then, you got to use all these different, you got to pull out every tool you have in your box, in storytelling tool, to try and condense that. Okay, what is important here? How do we transmit that information in a way that someone can digest easily, and sort of hint at this larger web of detail, but not bore someone to death, you know, or immediately have their eyes glaze over when you just start spewing data at them.
Well, you're
sometimes it's tough because like people don't see a fish for like 10, 15 minutes in our films, and we get comments. People be like, "Oh my God, I'm like 10 minutes in, I haven't seen a fish yet."
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it's partly our fault because our name is Tight Loops, and we started making these films where they were much more straightforward, sort of fishing films.
A lot of people probably came to you guys.
So we've got kind of a captive audience now of anglers, but I kind of love that. I love that people are annoyed, but that they're watching it anyway. And my hope is that slowly it's like,
just kind of sneaking it in there.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
Trojan horse.
Yeah. Which is the goal too, because we talk about this all the time that like, neither of us need to convince anglers to care about fish. They're already here. They already love fish. Our goal is to try and convince anglers to care about something larger than fish, or convince somebody who has never thought about fish at all, why fish are so cool and important. Because outside of, the angling community, your average person doesn't give a shit about fish.
Yeah, and there's also the importance of getting those people who care about fish to maybe, do something.
Yeah.
Take go do a river cleanup, or call their representative about some issue, or
Turns
there's
out
a lot of people that really care about fish, and either they don't take the time, or I think some people, sometimes just aren't sure exactly how to, get involved or do something.
Sure. And I think the messaging too in, the fly fishing world and the catch and release world is kind of like, well, if you catch a bunch of fish and you let them go, like, you are a conservationist. You've done your part, like, you've done enough. Which,
I feel like that's not
whatever. No knock on anyone. It's no one's obligation. I'm not trying to tell anyone they're not doing enough or should be doing more, but, if you think that conservation just means hooking fish and letting them go, there's a lot more to learn there, in terms of what you can actually do as an individual and as a community.
So you mentioned For Wild's Sake, which, if I remember, that's something that you guys started doing a few years ago, right?
Oh yeah.
For Wild's Sake, but it's ongoing.
Ongoing. There's still quite a bit.
We sort of shot it as an intention, and
because you started out here, right? The sort of initial.
I think the first one
describe
is
For Wild's Sake.
Yeah. So For Wild's Sake, subtitle, The Rare Trout Chronicles, on a very surface level is sort of the story. I'm a fish illustrator. I do scientific style rendering of fish, mostly salmon.
Which are amazing.
Thank you.
I'm just so jealous of people that can do that.
Yeah.
Like that kind of art.
It's crazy.
Easy.
James Prosek's stuff as well. Just, it's like.
It's cool. James is interviewed in the next For Wild's Sake episode.
Oh. Excellent. I really want to interview James.
Yeah.
Watching
really cool.
Chase paint this, I don't even understand.
It's
the level of patience
I think that's part of the level of patience, the control. Yeah.
Right. So I love it. If you zoom out and you look at, okay, I'm like painting pictures, scientifically accurate, which means that like every fish that I paint is like a 1-for-1, basically like photographic style reproduction of a specific fish. Same number of scale counts, fin rays, every spot is in the right place. I very, very meticulously am transferring the actual markings from a real fish onto a piece of paper. It's not being traced, but it's freehand. But that's sort of the goal, is to get like a fully accurate, under perfect condition and lighting representation of a member of this species in the sort of scientific tradition that you would do that. And why would you do that? Why does that scientific tradition exist? And it exists sort of to help catalog species, and then also to help people. The reason it needs to be accurate is that you can use it as a field identification guide to be able to show someone, this is what this species of animal looks like. Here's an example. You can use this to help ID something in the wild. But, my goal in doing it is to sort of, add to this catalog. And there's certainly a sense, in our modern era where cold water species are in peril, many are in decline, some are already extinct. There's a sort of sense that like, well, I don't know 100 years from now how many of these fish will still be here on the landscape. So it's kind of like a little bit of a witness statement. Just having more record of what diversity we have here on Earth, or had, or hope to have in the future, is just beneficial to people, to scientists, to the human spirit, and so in doing that, you start thinking like, well, what fish am I really eager to illustrate most? And it's probably not going to be a rainbow trout, where there's 50 gazillion of them everywhere. I started getting really interested in some of the rarer native species of trout, and thinking, well, there's just so much less cataloged of these fish just by necessity, because they're rarer. There's just less of them on the landscape. There's not a lot of photos of them. There's not a lot of illustrations of them. Right. So I wanted to illustrate these fish. And like I said, because I photograph them and illustrate them from life in the true scientific tradition, you'd probably kill a fish and preserve it in formaldehyde and draw it that way.
Yeah.
People think of like Audubon's birds and Darwin and all that. That's sort of the traditional way to do it. I try and release all the fish that I catch and just get really good photographic reference of a living specimen before I release it. But so we sort of had this journey we wanted to go on to try and catch and illustrate some of the rare trout species in North America. And so we thought, oh, this is great. We'll make like an adventure series about that. And we didn't know immediately when we started doing it exactly. Maybe it was just going to be one film. We didn't really have this idea that it would be episodic. Quickly became apparent that we were just collecting so much material that it was going to have to be episodic. But we shot all that in the summer of 2020.
Okay.
Which feels like a million years ago.
Were you guys still in the Vanagon then?
Yeah.
Starting in 2019, we moved into our Vanagon full time. Started on that adventure. Like 6 months later was COVID.
Yeah.
I think it was like 3 months later.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's a whole other story we can get into. But, it ended in this sort of like summer of kind of endless rambling, like it was for a lot of people when we were able to be outside and public lands were open and lockdowns, et cetera. Working around that, us and a bunch of our friends who also lived on the road in their vehicles just found ourselves just sort of wandering the American West. And we were doing all sorts of stuff, not fishing related, but Aimee and I kept sort of breaking off from our group of friends to be like, oh, we're near, this subspecies of fish. We can go try and catch this and that. And so, that whole series got shot 5 years ago. But where that exploration about these fish, and just like anybody, an angler who's interested in catching a rare species of fish is going to have to do a little bit of research about where is that fish? How do I find it? Invariably, you're going to start reading information about that fish's biology and its history. And you start, like I said, going down these rabbit holes and expanding your sort of web of knowledge about a species. We sort of just try and transmit that information into the episodes, sort of to show what our personal journey of discovery was like, but then also to take viewers along on that. And that just, the scope of that just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we go, oh, well, if you talk about this, you can't not talk about that. And if you talk about that, you can't not talk about this. And so each of these episodes, even though we shot it forever ago, can take like 6 months to a year by the time we've like
so you're still
you're
releasing stuff that was shot.
We have not
shot anything new for this.
Okay.
We have been avoiding going and catching lots of other rare fish species that we've been right next to because we just don't even want
we can't
we don't have the bandwidth.
Because the other thing is like we had sponsors on board initially, but like it's a small amount of money, like all of that's long gone, like it's just passion projects at this point. So like other things jump the line, and it's kind of always just simmering in the background and always on Chase's mind of like, oh,
it's not great for the sort of like linear transmission of our personal story that you'll find on our YouTube, because like every time one of these episodes comes out, it's 2020 again and we're back in the Vanagon. Like, nobody has any patience to watch like footage about lockdowns in 2020 and like but it's been nice for us anyway to get to constantly check back in and sort of relive some of those memories and reacquaint ourselves with our half decade younger selves and what we were doing at the time. And it's also made it challenging as a filmmaker to be working with like ancient footage. No matter how adept you are at anything, you're constantly evolving. So 5 years down the road, it's like, oh God, I would have shot this differently, and we would have planned this differently, and this looks like we're working on worse camera gear than we have now, and
with people who can't meet in person because of COVID. So we're doing like Skype phone interviews and things like that, and
So that part's a challenge to come at it with a certain expectation of what your work should look like, and you're working with your old embarrassing footage that like you cringe to look at now, but that's whatever. That's a small.
But but it sounds like you still feel like the content itself is worth it.
I think
even if like you would do things differently now, the content is still important and still timely and still worth it.
I think the content is evergreen. And we're using that series as kind of like a dummy's guide to ecology or something. It's like every episode is about a specific fish, and we talk about all the sort of very specific details and nuances of that fish and the place that it's in and the people who are there and its history and all that. but also there's sort of like a larger message or arc in each episode. And we're sort of using each episode kind of thoughtfully about how it ties into each one specifically, but we sort of have like a broader ecological message that we can sort of transmit through each story. And there's just like endless stuff that we want to talk about when it comes to that stuff. So, and you know, that hasn't changed from when we started to now. It's something that, we look forward to making the most, but like Aimee said, the money's dried up a long time ago when it came to that project. And it's the most demanding thing that we make, because we've also just sort of taken this approach to it that it's like no holds barred, creative. Any whim that we have, we just pursue it because it's our passion project and we have the time and space to do that, except that we don't really have the time and space
you really
to do that,
don't have the time,
So
and I mean, Chase is doing all of that work. I'm there as a consultant more than anything to like bounce ideas off of and give input, but in terms of like the editing, sound, color, motion graphic, like everything is on his plate.
That's
so
not your
still
bailiwick.
There was one day recently where you came out and you were like, look at this list of motion graphics I have. It was like an entire page with like tiny writing on it of just like all these things he was going to need to make. And I look at it and I'm like, oh, this is so psycho. Like, how are you going to do this? Like, we don't have any time. But you're like, it's just uncompromising, and it just takes as long as it takes. And it's very much a passion project that we both feel pretty strongly about. So it's.
Do you enjoy the editing process, Chase?
Or
I guess, do you enjoy it as much as the sort of filming process?
No, I honestly hate the editing process comparatively, at least to being in. I'm happiest in the field shooting. There's moments of the process that I like, but in general, the big problem with editing is it sits you in a chair. I have to be inside at a computer with my eyes bleeding for endless hours. I'd rather be outside hiking or something. I'm an outdoor cat. So, there's no way around it. It's an inevitable part of the process. And some of this work, like for Wild's sake, is so sort of deeply personal that getting someone else to edit it isn't really an option for it to remain what it is anyway. So you just sort of have to do it, but did you study filmmaking? I did, I went to the Rhode Island School of Design,
which is where you guys met.
Yep.
Right.
And I got in with an illustration portfolio. So like, my fish illustration doesn't come out of nowhere. I've been like a fine artist since I was a little kid. I was drawing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I did not go to RISD.
You didn't?
Side note. Yeah, I did not.
Aimee went to mass art, but dropped out punk rock.
I dropped out after my first year.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
I grew up outside of Providence, though. So very close to RISD.
Did you see Aimee in you were in a punk band or something?
I was in a couple bands, but I mean, when we were reunited, Chase and I met each other through skateboarding. And I don't know.
But that's hand in hand with the
ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, skateboarding, and music scene. But I was right outside of Providence. So RISD and the whole skate music scene was very much a part of in the city. So we had lots of crossover.
So you started out illustration, my
portfolio to get into college was all fine arts based, painting, illustration, that kind of thing. But I was making skateboard videos independently when I was in my late teens and all through my early 20s. And I had gotten to the point where a lot of young skateboarders, like myself and my friends, were all kind of had gotten good enough to be amateur and low level professional skateboarders, and the filmmaking started to become semi-professional filmmaking. And I was filming pros for big videos, and I was making independent skate videos with my friends group, and we were dedicating so much time to that I just decided to consolidate my interests in college.
Oh, okay.
I thought I was making some big grown-up decision about that. But I don't know, maybe I was just avoiding the workload of fine arts in school. But I was out till 4 a.m. every night filming skating. And I figured, well, if I'm playing with cameras during every waking extracurricular minute of my time, I should just play with cameras in school too. So I ended up majoring when we had the way most art school works is like first year is a foundational year where everyone kind of does the same well-rounded artistic curriculum. You do it all, you know, painting, sculpture,
theory,
filmmaking,
history,
all that stuff. And then starting your sophomore year, you declare your major.
Yeah.
And so when it was time to declare, I declared. There's a program at RISD is film, animation, and video, which
cool.
at the time, film really meant film. We edited like reel-to-reel style with razors and tape, film on a Steenbeck machine, and cut our audio on magnetic tape and did the whole, which was cool. I mean, that used to be the way everyone did it, but RISD was late in terms of switching over to digital. So that was cool. I got like a real filmmaking foundation there, and then I also had a video program, and then an animation program, and then like second year of your major, you had to kind of decide if you're going to focus on animation or film and video. I focused on film and video, but I did get a good, you know, the first year in my major, I did get a good foundation in traditional like hand animation too, which people who watch our films occasionally will see hand animated elements crop up and stuff like that, and people are always asking me like, where'd you learn to do that? Well, I learned in school how to do a lot of that stuff, but that also helped tremendously just with the motion graphics work we do. Again, we have so much like historical context, geologic context, all this sort of like data driven information that we have to try and transmit into a visual medium in our films, where just saying numbers and facts in voiceover with disconnected imagery over the top is very hard for people to retain. So I spent a tremendous amount of time making visual aids basically to say, okay, I'm talking about how, you know, this, you know, tectonic plate shifted over time or whatever. Okay, I need to figure out some way to animate that where people can see it and understand it. And
that's really like, that's really a sort of next level element to any film project, whether it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes or 45, like being able to bring that in just totally changes the quality of things.
Right. And that level of quality is largely dependent on time and budget for people because it just takes a long time to make that stuff. The blessing or curse, us working for ourselves, is we just get to say, okay, we're sparing no expense. I'm going to spend 6 months making graphics for this 15-minute YouTube video because I feel like that's what it needs to be, as good as it can be.
Because no one's paying anyways. So spare no expense because there's no budget.
Right. I'm paying myself with my own time. But it's been cool. It's been really, I'm grateful for platforms like YouTube and social media that we can do that. And I don't want to give people the impression that we're doing that very successfully. We're certainly not wealthy or even
financially
particularly above poverty
line.
But we still have the space in our lives currently. We don't have kids, we don't have a ton of responsibility to sort of pursue our creative whims in that way and survive. We're not surviving comfortably, but we're surviving.
So it really depends on your personal comfort level, you know. People ask us all the time, like, how do you make a living? Like, well, we just don't. Like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I mean, we live in a truck. So, like, you just gotta figure out where your comfort level is at. If you're okay with the uncertainty and the roller coaster of freelance life, you know, you figure out a way to make it work. But we probably live a very different looking life than most people.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I mean, since 2019, you guys have been living out of your Vanagon, which how is the van?
I mean, it's good.
I should say we've talked about this a few times because I also own a Vanagon. You guys had the van that you lived out of for a while.
Bullwinkle is still kicking.
What year was Bullwinkle?
1985.
Water cooled.
Yeah.
Water cooled and
weekender
full of crazy
camper?
mysteries.
It was a weekender.
We lived full time out of a weekender, which is gnarly.
Camp stove. Dish bin.
Oh yeah.
Baby wipes.
For people who aren't familiar, the Vanagon was the next stage from the sort of classic hippie bus, Volkswagen bus that people are familiar with. And then they made a type of Vanagon called a Westfalia that was a camper, a built-in camper.
With the stove and the sink and the fridge inside. And the
interior has everything you need to camp, you know, short of a bathroom, I guess. But it had a fridge and a sink and a kitchenette. And then they made a sort of in-between version called a weekender that had the pop-up top and a bed so you could sleep extra people in there. But instead of having that full dinette kitchenette deal in there. It just had a table and a sort of a reverse jumper seat. So like people could sit around a table, but other than that, and it had, you know, an auxiliary battery in there to power other stuff, but there wasn't any real appliances built into it stock anyway. Yeah, you had a closet to put your clothes in. So it was, you know, as the name implies, was kind of meant for like short little trips here and there, not really full-time living. Pack a cooler, bring your stuff for a couple of days. Not really
full-time living.
But we lived in our weekender for 3 straight years.
We'll get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, I want to tell you about the new Deco case colors from Decked. Deco cases are solidly built, weatherproof, go-anywhere gear canisters, and they come in a variety of sizes and configurations that allow maximum versatility for whatever ways you can dream up to utilize them. You can get them with a variety of trays and dividers, as well as foam inserts that can be customized for carrying everything from camera gear to power tools. With a handful of new colors, including Ranger Green, Blaze Orange, and Cool Gray, you can match the case to its intended use. So Ranger Green for that low-profile blending-in look, or Blaze Orange for that can't miss it, won't forget it at the campsite, this stuff is important look. Deco cases are a great way to get in on what Decked has cooking for you non-truck owners as well. And like their truck bed organizers, they're made in the USA. Shipping is always free. Visit decked.com/flyfish to learn more, and then get out there, get decked, and get after it. Was there a final straw where you guys were like,
oh my God, there was like 20 final straws?
Well, I mean, I guess that's what I wondered is like, was it just the accumulation, or was there like a particular breakdown where you were like, we gotta stop?
It was both. It was an accumulation of like the ambient stress level that we were living at, of just like, how long can we do this? We carried all of our tools, spare parts, fluids, everything with us. We had hundreds of pounds of gear.
Yeah.
You're living in a van. We had our cat with us also, so he took up a little space, you know, like priority for the litter box, so that like you're not stepping in the litter box. It goes under the jump seat. We had to like cut a little hole in it so we could get in there. So like everything else was prioritized. The cat and the tools and the parts. We're breaking down all the time. We're doing all the work to the van ourselves. We're dropping transmissions. We're putting in transmissions. We're shipping transmissions across the country. It's a true labor of love. Like, you have to be sick to like fully like commit to these vans.
I always tell people, if you want to own a van again, you either have to really like working on cars, like you have to really enjoy it, and have a little bit of money to support that habit, or you just have to have lots of money to spend on it, because it's not a cheap car to own.
We had tried taking it to one or two other people when we had dead end problems where we were like, we cannot figure this out. And we would get the van back and it would be so much worse than when we brought it in. So that was like, well, we're done with that. We can't trust anybody. No one cares about this van the way we care about this van. So we have to be the ones to work on it. And so then, you know, every time something goes wrong, that pressure's on your plate. You know, we broke down in the desert, and luckily some people came by and like went and bought us coolant so we could like get out of the desert, because our whole cooling system exploded. Like, it's just like so many disasters. But people would always ask us like, when are you going to upgrade? And we're like, what do you mean? When are you going to upgrade? And they're like, when are you going to get a Sprinter van? And we're like, dude, never. A, can't afford one. Yeah. B, like, no, we're not getting a Sprinter van. Like, we have a Westie. Like, we don't do that. Like, we're Volkswagen people, okay? So you like keep telling yourself this, and you just get like more and more sucked into it. And like Bullwinkle became part of our family. Like, that's like really like our first home together in a way. But we were on a trip. We were getting ready to leave for Baja, and we could tell something was wrong. And you kind of do the like, you're like weighing the options of like, we could stay here and not go to Baja and try to fix whatever this is, but we don't really know what it is, so it's probably going to take a long time. We don't really have a place to work on it. Or we could just like see how it goes, and hopefully we don't break down in Mexico, like in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. So we decided to just go. We did figure out, though, that we got to La Paz, which is the very far southern tip of Baja, and we took it to a mechanic there who had been highly recommended to us as like the Volkswagen guy. Yeah. So we take it in, and we thought we were leaking fluid, like pretty severely. And we were leaking ATF, and we were like, why? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Well, I should say ATF was disappearing. ATF was leaking, but not visibly outside anywhere. We just kept having to fill up. We didn't know, we're burning it. Is it leaking? Is it
we're like, this
somewhere?
is suspicious.
So frustrating.
Just going to try to like block that out and not think about it so we can like go surfing. So we bring it into the shop and we explain the situation, and we were like, maybe it's, I don't know, could be this, could be that. And the guys are like, I mean, your rear main seal was leaking. And we were like, yeah, but that's always leaking. Like, what do you mean? They're like, well, we replaced that. And like, we think that's all that's wrong. And we were like, no. And we're trying to communicate through language barrier. You know, like we speak a small amount of Spanish. Yeah. But the guy eventually was like, just come here, just come to the shop. Okay. So we get there and we go in, and he's showing us the work they did, and he's pointing out this and that. And we're like, all right, well, like, the issue is that like we've put in multiple quarts of ATF at this point, and it's still low. So like it's going somewhere. And he opened up the gear oil plug, and it shot out the side. Oh, and we were like, well, that's where it's going.
We had an automatic transmission, which automatic transmission has two halves. There's the differential and then the actual auto trans. And those two have gaskets between them, and they take different weighted oils in each of them that are meant to, work properly with the mechanics in each of those. They're not supposed to mix, but that seal had gone.
When the seals have disintegrated, cooked themselves, melted, whatever happened in there.
Yeah, so we were putting ATF into the transmission, and it was just flowing into the differential and staying in there, and we just kept putting more and more and more. So it was like, ready to pop, just full of gear oil and ATF mix. And if you read the manuals, they say that you should never put anything but the properly weighted gear oil inside of a differential, or else catastrophic damage. But this mechanic in Mexico told us like, no big deal. Like, you guys are fine.
Well, we were like, what do we do? And the guy was,
one kind of oil's better than none. Like ATF's better than empty. So
this guy raced a lot of Volkswagens down in the desert, and he was this older gentleman, and he seemed very confident in us for some reason, for not knowing us. And he like, put his arms around us and was very like, I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but basically was saying like, you're going to be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. You're going to make it. Cause we were like,
probably see the stress in your faces.
I think he could. I was like a borderline, like going to cry. Chase's passport expired in 10 days. So he had to get home, and I'm trying to figure out, well, does he fly home? Cause they were like, we can rebuild your transmission, but in Mexico, we can't always get the right gaskets. We can't always get the right parts. It might take a long time. Yeah. So you'd have to wait a while. Like, it might be a month or two before we can and like, we're probably gonna have to make some stuff that's not really available to us.
Yeah, he's like, if we can't find the right gasket, we'll just get one that's wrong and cut it to size. Yeah. He's like, it'll be fine.
So we were like, ugh. And his passport's going to expire. So we're thinking, do we put him on a plane and then I just hang out in La Paz by myself for an undisclosed amount of time and then drive the van back by myself? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So we decided to just wing it the same way we wung it on the way down. Like, I guess we're driving the thing back across the border.
For those who don't know the geography, it's like 1,000 miles back to the States.
Yeah. 1,000 miles of like pretty rough roads. They are paved now for the most part, but it's curvy, crazy potholes. Like, it's not a straightforward drive. And at this point, the ATF is starting to push itself up the dipstick and out onto the top of the engine. So we are like fully like smoke coming out of the back of the van. Our friends Carissa and Lindbergh are with us, and they have a Land Cruiser, and they're just like, all right, like, we got you guys, like, we're staying together, we're gonna follow you. They're just getting pelted with like ATF spray off the back of our van, and we just did like a Hail Mary, like 48-hour just push to the border, like white knuckle. Chase wouldn't let me drive because you like couldn't even hit the brakes without like ATF spilling onto the engine. So I would navigate from the passenger seat, like, okay, like 30 degrees, like left-hand turn coming up, hit the brakes like now, ease into it. Yeah, just to try to not like upset the whole like equilibrium of the van. And we rolled across the border at like 1 a.m. and there's photos from that. Like we rolled through the border and of course like we get pulled over like 5 minutes from the border. The cops are trying to get us down to the station. We're trying to translate on their phones. Like, you don't understand, guys, like we can't take the van to the station. Like it's barely going to make it over the border. Like we've been driving for hours and hours and hours. Like we can't do this right now. And I'm like about to start crying. I'm like, what do I have to do to make all of this stop? Like just get us over the border. Yeah. We get there, the van's overheating.
Yeah.
You know, like we're like, can we turn the van off in the line? And the Border Patrol agents is like, I guess so. Like, you know, he's like inspecting the van and we're just like, oh my God, like we just need to get across the border. And we get over, it's like 1 a.m. and roll into an In-N-Out burger so we can eat. And there's a photo. Chase's eyes are like so sunken in, so exhausted totally from like this, because we had a job like 2 days later where our van had to be in like part of the job. Like our van is part of the shoot that we're going to. So it was, that was the moment. What's actually even more comical about that, when you're talking about like, was there a moment where we decided we needed to make a change? Before all of that unfolded, our Chris and Lindbergh in the Land Cruiser almost lost a wheel right after we crossed the border into Mexico. They had to get towed back to Mexicali, and then from Mexicali take the Land Cruiser back up to their home in California, get some work done to be able, they had like sheared some studs on the wheel. So we get to, Chase and I continued on our own, and we get to a campground the first night and we both cracked open a beer and sat by the beach and we were like, we know something's wrong with our van. We just watched what happened with Chris and Lindbergh. Like, is it time to seriously start considering something else? Like, is this just like too many stressful variables? Like the ambient stress level we live at is not sustainable. Like how long can we do this? We've been doing it for 3 years. We hate the idea of changing. Yeah. Because, you know, out of principle, but like we also love this van. Yeah. And we had that conversation and then just continued on. And then like the whole transmission kind of blew up. We had to make that drive back, and that kind of solidified everything at that point. I think both of us were like, I feel like the pendulum has swung too far in one direction and things are out of balance, and we're spending more time working on the van than actually traveling. Every time we go back to Montana, it's to work on the van. We don't have a great place to do that. Like it's never easy, and it's feeling harder and harder every hurdle we come up against, and we just kind of reluctantly we're like, all right, let's start looking.
Yeah, that thing you said about in order to own a Vanagon, you got to like really love working on cars. Living in one full time kind of like sucked that out of us. Yeah. You know, when we still lived in an apartment, and we had that van for 10 years, you know, we lived in it for 3, but we had it for a lot longer than that. And when it was like a weekend project where you could just sort of like clock in and out and you weren't dependent on it to get you where you needed to go, we sort of, you know, before buying it, we knew a little bit about cars, me even less so than Aimee, but we became sort of full blown mechanics by owning it. And for a while, we really kind of got into that. We're like, I really like working on cars. This is really rewarding.
We had a shop space, we had a lift,
troubleshoot something and work through it. And even for a little while, we were sort of traveling summers with it and then coming back, and you know, that was every summer was full of harrowing breakdown stories and whatever, but it still sort of had like if we can just get through the summer, it's all good. And then once it became like, well, no, this is like plan A, B, and C. We're in this full time, and if this thing breaks, our whole lives shut down. That sort of stress level of working on the vehicle really kind of like turned us off from the enjoyment of it. Then it was just something you dreaded and something you had to do whether you wanted to or not. And honestly, it's kind of like, at least for me, like put me off of working on cars, period. I feel like it's going to be a long time before I'm ready to like buy some project car for the fun of it again. Because all my most recent memories are just horror and
they
dread.
Were like, horrible experiences for us. And like, we can always look back at them and be like, wow, that was like pretty crazy. We made it through this. Like there's lots of positives that come from it. But in those moments, they were so hard. And like probably some of the worst arguments that you and I have been working on the van together. Cause you're just so maxed out. Like your whole life is depending on this one thing. Yeah. And it's just hard. And like working on the side of the road when you're broken down is just a tough situation. And yeah, you're having to source parts, figure it all out from the middle of nowhere. And like, yeah, I think we just both got worn down.
Yeah, but ooh-wee, when the van's running good, man, life is sweet.
That's what you say. Like the highs were so high and the lows were so goddamn
Stockholm
low.
syndrome.
Just like
windows down and the van's running and it's like it's a sunny day and you got that big windshield and you can see everything. You're just like, this is the life.
A little bit of a tailwind.
Dude.
Oh my God, a tailwind was like, oh.
The world never looks better than it does out of the windshield of a Vanagon. Yeah. No. Everything is just so beautiful out of that big windshield of the open road.
We miss our van a lot, and I feel like we did a pretty good job at finding a new owner for Bullwinkle. We needed to make sure that this person knew what kind of psychotic mess they were getting themselves into, but that they also like understood Volkswagens and understood essentially, what they were getting themselves into.
Well, obviously the Greenland trip wasn't travel, adventure, expedition focused. I'm guessing Japan and Mongolia weren't, but maybe I'm wrong. Cause I mean, that's kind of, so you guys had the van, you traded that out for a truck that is your moving home now. Mm-hmm. And you've kind of continued to do the expedition thing. Since then, that's been a few years now that you've had the truck.
Yeah.
Right.
So crazy. 2022. It's technically we like moved into the truck and had the camper in early 2023.
Okay.
So
yeah, it's funny. It's there's kind of this big trade-off. So right around the time that we moved into our van, our sort of career as expeditioners was ramping up too. A lot of people will be familiar with a film we made called Big Land, which is about our sort of first really big wilderness expedition in Labrador. We were flown in with canoes and dropped off and paddled ourselves up and down this river system for a couple weeks. And we were sort of on this trajectory leading up to that. We were doing bigger and bigger trips. And then we did, a handful of other pretty big expeditions after that. And then we moved into our vehicle. And I don't think we necessarily anticipated this at the time, but like moving into your vehicle made expeditions exponentially harder without like a large home base to sort of run those sorts of trips off. All of a sudden, something
you're
as
like, where do we
as
store our
even
vehicle?
A week-long trip to somewhere is like, well, what do we do with our house? You know what I mean?
What do we do with our house? What do we do with our cat?
And our house and everything that we own and all of our belongings now has to fit inside a 60 square foot van. So all this like specialized equipment, okay, we don't have a canoe anymore. We don't have all this other expeditioning gear. We can only carry so much. You have to sort of select what activities you can do full time. And that becomes very sort of small in scope. Like on the one hand, the world sort of opens up and you're like, hey, I can travel anywhere I want that this vehicle can take me any day, like the horizons broaden, but then they also really narrow in a way where like, we can't, we don't have a place to store all the things necessary to do these sort of specialized expedition like trips that just require a ton of specialized gear by their very nature. So then like all of a sudden our like expeditioning career really sort of got cut off in a sharp way. We had sort of assumed after we started doing these trips up in Canada that like, or at least I had assumed anyway, that we'd just keep planning like more, every year we'd have some big sort of wilderness expedition like that. And then of course, also coincided with COVID and like, we couldn't really travel and then whatever. And then once all that dust sort of settled and now 6 years later, we're still living in our vehicle. That challenge is still very real. How do we do these bigger trips? We've gotten a little bit better about figuring that out and coming to terms with something that like, okay, we leave our vehicle in an airport parking lot or whatever, which seemed really scary 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Also with the van, we named the van.
Yeah.
The van was like a part of our family.
Yeah.
This truck is also super important to us, but it was really important to me because of the emotional toll it took on me to sell the van, that this next vehicle was a tool and it wasn't going to get a name.
It's
and
like,
it was
don't name your chickens.
Yeah. Like I needed to like separate from that because I get very emotionally like sentimental about a lot of things like that. So,
well, and you kind of grew up, you grew up in a family where like your dad or somebody raced
Yeah,
race
I mean, cars
right?
are always
Cars
like
were always
very
a thing.
important.
Yeah.
Cars are like front and center and still are. You know, my brother still, like, if you go visit his home, like there's cars and race cars everywhere. It's like basically like a little junkyard. But he's always like buying, selling, flipping cars, stuff like that. Cars have always been like a big part of my life. So yeah, I do feel this like weird attachment even to like my first vehicle and, you know, cars that we had when we started dating. And this one I wanted, I mean, I still think there is a bit of an attachment, but there's a lot of less anxiety around it. But also like, you know, the van was a lot easier to break into. The van was also a target to be stolen because they became very desirable. So like leaving that van, and like we didn't go to any cities unless we could like park somewhere where you could essentially see the vehicle from where you were going because they became such a hot commodity. Like don't even like drive through San Francisco, you know, like they were getting stolen left and right in California. So with the truck, it opened up a little bit more in terms of like my comfort level of like, all right, well, I don't feel great about leaving this in an airport parking lot because like it does draw attention for sure. But it at least has like modern locking systems, and like we have insurance on it, you know, like it's in theory like it should be all right. So like the more we have those kind of experiences that go well, like the easier it gets to do that. We're lucky this summer, obviously like 3 months of international travel. We didn't want to leave our truck on the street in Montana. So we have some friends in Bozeman, and they had a space that we could leave our truck, and they keep an eye on it. It's off the road. It's like out in the back in the grass. So like super safe, super secure. Put that out of your mind. Like don't worry about the truck. So that was
a lot of our expeditions now become sort of vehicle-based expeditions, which you can get yourself into a lot of cool stuff with a vehicle. But by its very definition, you know, you can go where there are roads, and generally where there are roads are going to be slightly less adventurous, remote areas
hiking yourself
you can get into in true wilderness. But we're figuring out ways to find this, you know, because my folks have a place in Butte. It's sort of become our home base where we can, you know, more reliably leave a vehicle. Like this past summer, we hiked 200 miles through Yellowstone over 3 weeks just with our backpacks, you know. So we're still being able to go out, but
so this summer has been a lot of time not spent
in the vehicle.
The vehicle.
Yeah, pretty much all summer.
You did a big trek through Yellowstone. Yeah. I'm curious to hear about what you guys were doing in Japan and Mongolia. In terms of just like, I imagine it was somewhat work related.
I'm sure Aimee will elaborate on this more, but sort of the quick elevator pitch is like, Greenland, we were invited to come. Mongolia, we were also invited to come. We were making a film there.
And Mongolia had been in the works since COVID, since like 2019, 2020.
Who were you? You were there fishing?
We were there filming.
We were there filming.
Oh, okay.
Primarily.
I got a chance to fish for one afternoon over the like 10 days that we were there, but we were basically there as like camera for hire, telling somebody else's story.
Can I ask who you were with?
Yeah, a guy named Ben Ferimsky. He's the CEO of the Fly Fishing Show. Okay. And another guy, Rob Giannino, who runs a podcast called Fly Fishing Journeys and also hosts trips. Him and Ben are friends, and they had a project they were trying to get off the ground forever ago in Mongolia, time-in trip. And we had met Rob. In passing on a boat dock in Labrador once during a changeover day at a lodge that we were invited to. Yeah. But then it sort of kept in touch online, and him and Ben wanted to do this trip, and they had this idea that it would be worth documenting, and our names came up through Rob, and Rob reached out to us, and of course at the time, and still even to this day, someone
if you want to go to Mongolia,
hey, you want to go to Mongolia on a time trip? Like, of course I want to go. Yeah. And that film and project took a bunch of different shapes and different turns. It started off as it was going to be sort of a research expedition with a scientific group, and then that fell apart, and then it became a strictly fishing thing, and then that fell apart, and then in the end it became a fishing and scientific exploration thing where we got to meet up with folks from the Wild Salmon Center about halfway through and be a part of this big tagging program they were doing on timing up there. But we were just sort of there to just document and tell that story. And again, because it took so many different shapes, and the most recent fall apart from it going from one thing to another thing happened like a week before we left. We all had already bought our tickets, and the whole trip, completely different river, completely different place, completely different people. The whole thing shifted last minute. We didn't even really know what the story was when we got there. We were kind of still figuring out exactly what the story was, but our job was just to be there, roll on everything, and sort of see where that story takes us. So that was work related, but that trip, like a lot of trips, well, not like a lot of trips, but like some trips still, more earlier in our career, less now, was basically like an unpaid trip. Like the trip was comped. There was an outfitter who was helping facilitate the whole thing. And then
did you by any chance fish with Peter Fong? Or
we did. We got to meet Peter.
Cool.
Which was a real highlight.
How about Jeff Forsey? Was he there?
No,
I don't think Jeff was there.
He might have just been.
No,
I know the name, but Jeff wasn't there.
It was.
That's great.
Peter's the best.
He's
so cool.
I really love. I get to work with him in my role as editor, and he's a fantastic
great
writer.
writer.
Yeah, Chase is reading. He gave us both a copy of his book, Brought to you by Call.
Yeah.
Chase started reading it. I'm in the middle of another book, so I'll get to it after that. But yeah, meeting Peter, he came in with the scientists and was helping out with that project before he went off to another project. And we got a little bit of time with him and got to learn a little bit about his history and got to talk with him. It was just like, I could listen to Peter talk for days.
Super charismatic.
Anything that he says, I'm like, oh man, it just sounds so good.
And it was cool. Like I said, I only got to fish for an afternoon, but Peter put me on 2 timing that day. So that was,
nice.
That was really cool. He's a great guide.
Very kind.
Better guides I've ever met too, just purely from a fishy standpoint.
Was Japan work related? Fun?
Japan was... So when we went in April, that was the first time Chase and I went on a trip that was like just for us to go on a trip. I call it like our first like vacation that we've really ever gone on, to go somewhere for a month and just like do whatever you want. And like we were kind of like filming little things here and there. I was taking mostly film photos and just like really getting to enjoy Japan and explore and do like the touristy stuff. And then
totally like city-based trip. Just
all city-based.
Just for the cultural travel. Exchange.
Yeah.
And then, because I have always been interested in visiting Japan, we started learning Japanese, and we had some ambitions to potentially live in Japan for at least a year and like do a bit more like remote fishing stuff. So that's still a possibility, still something that we're like looking at how to make happen. But then when the Mongolia thing, like basically for 5 years, we just kept our Septembers open because that was always like the Mongolia maybe happening in September. And then it would follow through. So like we always kept that time open. And then once Mongolia was like fully a go, we looked at the tickets, and like typically from the US, you lay over in Korea, China, or Japan. So because Japan felt familiar for us at that point, we had such a great time. We figured we'll come back from Greenland. We'll give ourselves a little bit of time to like get things sorted at home, and then we'll fly to Japan to get on the time zone. So by the time we start filming in Mongolia, we're feeling good. Because it's always a little like funky at first adjusting. So we went to Tokyo and Kyoto on the front end for 6 days, flew to Mongolia, and then decided on the back end to extend because I was like, I don't know, financially not responsible of us to do this. Like this makes 0 sense, especially after the fiasco getting back from Greenland and like all the extra money we had to spend on those plane tickets. But it's like, if you're going to fly all the way around the world, I just feel like you're there.
If you're there.
So might as well. So we decided to do 2 weeks on the back end up in Hokkaido. And do a little bit of fishing.
We rented a camper van.
We rented a camper van.
We could
nice.
drive around. I mean,
took the ferry up from Tokyo up to Hokkaido, and then stayed in Sapporo for a little bit. Got the camper van, tripped around the island. I mean, not even close to enough time, but it was so fun.
I imagine from the photography standpoint that Japan must be kind of mind-blowing.
It is, It's. I feel like everything you look at,
you're just like left and right.
Like everything just looks so cool because it's.
I don't have enough rules of film
in
for
a
this.
different language, and it's beautiful looking. So it's.
If you can say one thing about the Japanese culture is they have a deep commitment to aesthetics.
And
I guess in some way every culture has an aesthetic, but Japan's sort of value of physical beauty and aesthetic beauty is very specific to that culture, and so everything does.
Yeah, like city signs, buildings,
Everything from
like the color palettes, everything is just so nice.
It's really beautiful and clean.
And then, I mean, the country is beautiful.
I feel like you can, you know, somebody says the word Japan, like there's an image that sort of comes to mind, whereas like it doesn't necessarily exist for other countries.
Yeah.
You know, when they're mentioned.
Yeah. And especially like night photography and experimenting more with that and like shooting neon lights and just like,
oh, cool.
Yeah. There's a glow to like Japan cities at night.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't know. It's just so unique. But yeah, getting to experience Hokkaido and be in the mountains and like during fall, I really wanted to try to get some of the fall foliage, which we got up to a high enough elevation in the national park. So we got to see quite a bit of that, which is great. And we got to catch some fish, and I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm completely obsessed with the fishing in Japan. So I feel like we are for sure going back.
Cherry salmon and
got to catch, you know, again, not like a giant fish, but a really nice yamame.
Yeah.
And a shorokoma, and I was just like, oh, they're so beautiful. I don't know what it is, like if it's just because I love Japan so much and I'm like, we can go back and keep fishing, but something about those fish is like so unique and so beautiful.
Well, the fish themselves aesthetically are quite beautiful. They have really striking markings and coloration. This, you know, the yamame, the little cherry salmon, they have par marks, you know, these sort of large spots on them that are far more like high contrast and vibrant than like the par marks we're familiar with other North American salmonas. It's a very, very striking looking fish. But then also the fisheries and the fishing in general is really interesting there in that it's primarily sort of small, just because of the terrain by necessity. Japan is very mountainous, and they've got a lot of small sort of mountain streams that people in North America would be familiar with, sort of blue lining small streams for small fish.
Yeah, it's got a very, for me, growing up in New England, there's a real like similarity between New England.
Sure, yeah. A lot of those streams look like
Japan.
any little brook trout stream in the Smokies or something like that. And you're fishing for small fish in small water like that. But in contrast to North America, those fish are very, very educated and spooky. So in a lot of small streams like that, the like fishing is so generally pretty easy. You can toss a big attractor dry fly and
in the Northeast.
Yeah, in the States,
US,
anywhere, even small cutthroat streams out west. That's in general, when you think of like blue lining small streams, you're not thinking of difficult, challenging fishing. You're thinking of pretty easy to fool, generally small fish. But the small fish in these little streams in Japan are incredibly difficult to fish for. And people are like army crawling with 15-foot leaders and 7X to catch an 8-inch fish, you know, and you're tying little cripple patterns or whatever to fool them. They're sort of notoriously hard to catch, which creates a really interesting dynamic for people like us who just love small stream fishing like that, to then add, you can have both of those things. You can have like the challenge of a Henry's Fork rainbow.
There were so many times where we were like, there should be a
water.
fish here. Why is there not a fish here? Like, it looks perfect. And you're just, it's not the same fishing experience, but it was, I don't know. I can't really like put my finger on what it was about it that like really just swept me off my feet. But the only thing I wasn't stoked on was the brown bear situation. But, you know,
like,
so a lot of people wouldn't know
bears.
that there's like a bear problem in Japan. It's not really it's
like
a problem when they come in conflict with people.
Like, there's lots of deaths.
So in 2023, there was 6 fatalities and over 200 attacks.
Wow.
Which is really high. I mean, maybe if you don't live in bear country, if you're listening to this from somewhere that's like not in a bear area like we have out west here, maybe that you don't have context for those numbers.
Yeah, that's
but
a lot.
That's way higher than Alaska or the Rockies here, Wyoming, Montana. 6 people killed in a year and over 200 people attacked. That's like crazy high numbers. It's a very specific sort of. There's very specific conditions that are happening in rural Japan right now, which is that young people are urbanizing, moving to the cities. They're leaving behind an older generation of people. And as people sort of flood out of rural areas and into urban areas, bears are moving back in because there's just less human activity.
And it's tons of like agricultural
places are kind
fields.
of rewilding themselves to some degree. And the only people who are left behind are generally the elderly. So the elderly, a bear encounter is more likely to be fatal, you know, between a 75-year-old woman and a bear than maybe a 20-year-old.
Or probably just more likely to happen generally.
Right. And it's more likely to happen generally. But yeah, in Hokkaido, they have a species of brown bear, the Izo brown bear, that's a little, smaller than probably even interior grizzlies and certainly like coastal brown bears in Alaska, but it still is a brown bear. It's got a hump on its back. It looks like a grizzly. They kind of max out at like 800 pounds or something, which is still a giant bear.
Still so big.
Still a giant, but not as big as some of the other ones, but just as mean, can be just as mean and aggressive. Yeah. And the area, we went to a peninsula in the far northeast of Hokkaido called the Shiratoko Peninsula. And from some accounts I read, supposedly that peninsula has the highest concentration of brown bears anywhere on Earth, any species of brown bear. You can't go anywhere else on Earth where there's more brown bears per square mile than this peninsula in northern Japan, which you wouldn't think. It's not a reputation that, precedes it necessarily. You're like, oh, Japan's pretty beary. You want to be
I had no idea until we started looking into it.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah. I was like, no, I don't love bears. They kind of freak me out. Yeah. Especially growing up in New England, black bears were your only like real concern there, and going out west and being in grizzly country, like that hike through Yellowstone was a huge challenge for me because of the bear possibilities. But we get out there, and it's really common for people to use bear bells in Japan, which out west we hey bear and we're loud and we're yelling, but that doesn't seem like a very Japanese way. Very disruptive. So they use bells. So we picked up a bell because we were thinking, well, maybe the brown bears here are used to hearing bells and they associate them with humans. So we're going to use all possible modes of protection here. We still hey beared. We were out there alone. We didn't see any people. But it was very evident right away hiking into the river that I can see why this is a problem, because the foliage that we are used to seeing in bear country is very different than what's in Japan. And you have this like low growing bamboo that is just impossible to see.
You can't see daylight through it. I mean,
anything. And it's just high enough that you can't see anything around you. You can't see anything in front of you. Like, it would be so easy to walk up on a mom and cubs.
Yeah, we were talking about, I don't know which Jurassic Park film it was, maybe Lost World or something. There's a scene where they're in tall grass and the raptors are picking people off in the tall grass. That's exactly what it
we were like,
there could be a bear 3 feet from me in this undergrowth and I would not see it. I'd have no idea. So,
and while we were out there fishing, like, we're being pretty mindful. You're looking around and making noise, and we're not seeing any prints. We saw some old bear prints. We're not feeling like anything's particularly fresh or of concern, and we're having a great time fishing, and we get pretty far upriver, and we had been to one specific little bend and walked up on the bank, and you could see my footprints, and we only went like 10 more minutes up, maybe 5 minutes. Decided to turn around and start hiking back, and on our way back stopped to fish the same pool, and there's a fresh bear print in between my boot prints, and you're thinking, oh shit. That bear is not very far from us. And it was either following us or just happened to cross the river and walk through and probably smelled us, hopefully heard us, and has gone in a different direction. But it always, puts me on edge a little bit. You're kind of like, I feel like you're being watched. So that part is still not great. But otherwise, the fishing in Japan just, blew me away.
Cool.
I just feel like, I don't know. Like, I just feel really excited about those fish.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys have coming up in the next few months, the next year or so? What are before we go, just kind of projects that people should be keeping an eye out for?
So
even if and beyond film too, like I don't know if you're, photography, like a photo book. I'd love to see an Aimee.
Yeah, so that's funny that you bring that up. There's a photo book that is happening. Cool. Saying it out loud is like my accountability. It's very scary to say that. But I have been working with a lab called Gelatin Labs. They've been, since we did our Alaska trip, they've been sponsoring me and helping me out with developing scanning. And I'm going to start working on this book essentially like next week. I've been working on it for the past year, but things are really going to start to speed up and take shape here. And we've got a whole series that's going to be coming out about our travels in Alaska. Cool. And I hope to have a pre-order available for that book as well. So it'll be all film from that trip, compiled into hopefully a beautiful book. Totally new. Excellent. For me, I've never made a photo book before. And it is very scary and it feels very weird. Like on one hand, I feel like, how could I ever be ready to make a photo book? Like, that's reserved for like real photographers who are like, I don't know, not me. And on the other hand, I feel really excited because I'm trying to view it as, this isn't the end all be all photo book. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's more a way for me to show my work in a different medium. I really miss printing my work.
Yeah.
And being in a darkroom and having physical, like tangible prints. So this is a new venture, probably again, not financially responsible, but it feels important at this point to like show my work in a different way and have a tangible project to work on. So
that's awesome.
Trying
that's
to
exciting.
just like
exciting to hear.
Will it into existence, even though it is terrifying. The imposter syndrome is real.
Oh, I know. I know.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to talk about it today, but this past summer, before Greenland and Mongolia and Japan, all that, the summer before that, we did our first like really sort of like long form travel in our truck. I mean, we live in our truck every day, so we're constantly traveling, and we'd driven it down to Baja a little bit, but we decided to drive all the way up to Alaska. We drove all the way to the Arctic Ocean. We basically spent our entire summer,
which is how we almost crossed paths last summer when you guys cruised through Washington.
We pointed ourselves due northwest and basically kept going until the road ran out, and just spent like 3 months or so traveling over the summer. We shot a episodic series about that, and we're producing it for another company called X Overland. They're actually our friends who we got to leave our truck with here that are mostly...
They're based out of Bozeman.
They're based out of Bozeman.
Oh, cool.
They're mostly like sort of a vehicle-based travel media company. But they're all outdoors people, and they all like to fish and stuff like that. We're sort of their like... They've started a program where they're inviting other creators to come in and sort of produce work to live on their channels. We're sort of their fishing contingent. So, that won't come out on our channel. That will be on their channel. But anyone who follows us on any platforms will be pointed towards that stuff. And that should be rolling out pretty close to the new year. That's sort of like our big thing we're looking at right now is actually begging my parents to let us squat in their house so that we can be a little more stable to crank through Aimee's book work and editing that series.
There's quite a backlog.
One thing we've learned from living full time in our truck is that it's very hard to set aside as much time to work as you do to play, because the temptation when it's just
it's tough when you're always
turn the key and where do you want to go?
In a beautiful place,
Well, right.
You're in the desert in the winter, and then you're going to Baja.
Adventures.
So you're sitting on the beach and you're like, that's a pretty good place to work. But then like the surf looks really good, and they're snorkeling, and then like it's just.
And it's gotten to the point where we've developed enough of a backlog that it's becoming the new ambient stress level in our lives, trying to get through that workload. So this winter, we're trying to sit a little more still for the first time in 6 years, essentially, coming off the road. To live in a guest room at my parents' house and set up like a proper little studio space with a computer that just stays there, and every day we can clock in and work and try.
We've been
to
home for like 3 days. It's going okay so far, but we are starting to make plans here and there. So sitting still, I think, is going to prove to be quite challenging, but we've never done a full winter in Montana. So
crazy.
Yeah, we almost always chase warm weather in the winter. One, because living in a vehicle in 40 below in Montana stinks. If we were bigger into like winter sports, if we were like big ski or snowboard people, maybe that would be different. But as is, we're sort of lightweight skiers. It's not something we chase during the winter. We're usually just looking for warmer weather, and then when you're in warmer weather, you want to be adventuring and having fun. So this is the first winter that we're not gonna like go to Mexico all winter or go to the Southwest. We're just going to sit it out in the cold.
I did buy ski bibs, so like maybe we'll go skiing.
What to look forward to on the horizon is not a bunch of immediate new adventures in current time, but hopefully getting through a backlog of work to present adventures that we've been going on.
We
for
have
the
a
last
lot of
several
exciting
years.
things that I'm very anxious to share. with everybody, you know.
Yeah.
The Alaska series, a little side quest up in BC. That's going to be a really fun little video. We've got some birding content, some
excellent.
Maybe some little short films here and there.
We've got a huge documentary we shot 2 years ago up in northern Quebec. That's like a really big project that we got to start working on in a more serious way. We've got, we've released 7 episodes for Wild's Sake from the summer of 2020, and
there's like 8 to go, right?
Yeah, there could be as many as like.
We might need to do a season
Time to
2.
get to work.
We might need to do a season 2. We might need to like get some sponsors involved or something. But
well, that's awesome.
It's all very
glad
exciting.
To see, I'm glad to see it. I'm glad.
Of course, there's a Greenland film. There's a Mongolia film.
That's great to see. That's great to see. Well, thanks so much, guys. It's a pleasure to meet you and pleasure to chat, and I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was absolutely our pleasure to be here. We really revere the Fly Fish Journal. To us, it's like the gold standard of fly fishing print publication. So having the privilege and the honor to have our work featured occasionally over the years. And also to get to sit down and chat with you.
I always say it, it wouldn't be what it is without contributors like you guys. So keep it up. Keep getting out there, having adventures. Don't get eaten by any bears.
Yeah. That is the goal.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That is it for today. As always, thanks for listening to Sidechannels, presented by the Fly Fish Journal. Sidechannels is produced and edited by yours truly, with production support from Jeff Galbraith and Colin Wiseman, and digital and web support from Jesse Lou Galbraith, Colby Messick, and Kopi Vojta. Thanks as well to our sponsors, Decked. Get decked and get after it at decked.com/flyfish, and Patagonia, dependable gear built to connect with wild fish. Visit patagonia.com/fly-fish to learn more about the great stuff they've got going. And of course, if you're enjoying Sidechannels, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to rate and review the show. It makes a big difference and helps us reach new listeners. Don't forget to have fun out there, enjoy the process, and we'll see you in a couple weeks with the next episode.